I'll start by introducing myself a little bit. My name's Yana. I had always wanted to publish a book, and now it's so much more accessible, obviously, with Amazon, self-publishing, and all that. I was born in a Christian family, born and raised, went to church and everything. But then around age 17 is when I truly experienced Jesus for myself personally, and decided to follow him for the rest of my life. And so I really started, even though again I grew up on the Bible, I started to really dive into it and read it with a new lens. And as I would read, I would just start to understand it on a deeper level, and connect meanings throughout the Bible and all that. And so I would just start journaling, and I would journal different things that stood out to me, different things that I felt like Jesus was speaking through the scripture. And so I decided one day that I wanted to publish it. My first book, which was a devotional on the life of Jesus. I have it right here. So this is it, The Life of Jesus Christ, Living Like Jesus, Daily Devotions Through the Gospels. And so it was really just a work of my heart kind of being poured out into how I saw Jesus and understood him. And, I always encourage people to obviously read their own scripture and have their own relationship with Jesus, but it's just something that things that I didn't understand in life, or things that were difficult for me, and just lessons that I've learned. It's all things that I've learned, and I just want to compile it into a study going through all the Gospels. So that's what this is, my very first published book. It was super exciting when I did it, and it definitely launched something in me. I think you realize that once you complete something that in your mind was such a mountain to overcome, you're like, wow, I can do this. I can do more things like this. And so basically, before I really started going into the heavy steps of publishing it, like the most time-consuming parts of it, I would just work on it little by little, very little at a time. And I was also going to nursing school for 4 years of that. I was super busy with nursing school. I also met my husband during that time, and we started dating. So I was just like, it was the busiest season of my life right before I published it. And then basically, once I published it, I realized it's almost like all those childhood creative things in me that I just really was passionate about. And, I used to love drawing. I used to love reading all kinds of books and writing and all that. It's like a dam had been broken, and just this waterfall of creativity gushed. And I was also in a season where I had more time to work on these things. And so ever since then, I've just been working on all these passion projects that I've always wanted to do. So it's been amazing and beautiful, and I've really enjoyed doing it. Basically, what I'm trying to say is it started off like just ideas for books started coming to me over and over again. And I legit now have a super long list of books that I want to write one day. I did write another one after that. My second book and my first fiction book, my first novel. It's called The Sweetness of Life. And this one, it's the story of a Roman heiress, her Italian descendant, and the Adriatic Sea. And the way that this one was inspired was so another thing about me is I'm super passionate about traveling. I absolutely adore travel. I traveled when I was single. I met my husband. He loves to travel, so now we travel together. And basically, I had one of my ideas to write a book was to live in a place. Live meaning stay there for a longer than a week, longer than 10 days, and sort of live in a way that you are following your daily routine as you would at home. Like, you're not just doing excursions and vacation stuff every day. You're like, because my husband has a remote job, and at the time I was fully remote as well. So we basically decided to pick up and buy a one-way ticket to a place that was friendly to remote work, and just see what it was like, and do it as long as we wanted to. And so yeah, in 2023 we went to Croatia, and I fell in love with it. We both did. It was beautiful. It had you know, everything you wanted, from the sights to the restaurants, the cafes, just everything there was amazing. And that's where I started writing my book. I got inspired by the scenery around me, and I just wrote just the first couple pages, maybe the first chapter or so while I was there. So my goal was to write a book from a place that I was living in that wasn't home, like somewhere abroad. And so I did. And I did derive a lot of my own life experiences in there, a lot of what inspired me from other people's stories that I heard. So it was really easy to write in that sense, of where it was stuff that happened in my life or in someone else's life that I knew, but like in a fictionalized sense. This one is about, it's like a parallel story of, it's both Italy and Croatia, because Italy is another special place that my husband and I just adore. We've been there several times already. It was always a dream of ours to go, and then we finally went and just fell in love with it and kept going back. So anyways, it's an Italian girl in 1950s time period, and then she has an ancestor back from ancient Roman days, and she kind of like, she's always known about her. She grew up on stories about her, but her ancestor basically had some sort of impact in Croatia. And so she decides to go over there because she's trying to figure out what she's on earth for, what's her purpose, what, you know. So she goes to gain inspiration from her. So it's like an entire life story of both characters, Athena and Lucia. So anyways, that's the second book. I am writing a third one. I'm actually almost done with the first draft, which is super exciting. I just have another chapter to write, and then a few other tweaks. But super excited about that one. I'll tell you more about that one in another video. But there's a lot that I'm excited for. It's definitely a different style. They always say your first book is a lot more autobiography than like that. Like, you slowly come up with more creative ideas after that as a fiction author. So this one is definitely a lot more in that style, but the next one, it's not really my life. I think, not to go off on another tangent, but I think that you'll always have something of yourself in the story that you write, because it's, you know, you're writing things that you're passionate about. So there's always going to be things, but it's definitely not nearly as much as that. It doesn't have nearly as much of those aspects as this book did. So anyways, and then one thing I also wanted to share in these videos is basically to share whatever book I'm currently reading. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. And this video is going to be a lot of background because you don't know me. This is the first video. So basically, I had a bookshelf at home, and on it were a lot of books, and about maybe 60% books that I have read, and then the other 40% was books that I've never read. And I also had a gigantic list of books that I wanted to read that just kept growing. And I decided to finish every single book that I had on my shelf before buying any new ones. So I did. I did that, and then I started going off the list. I had so many books on there, nonfiction, fiction. So I would always, once I started purchasing new ones, I would always have one fiction one that I was reading and one nonfiction one. And recently, actually, I read the last nonfiction book on that list. And I told myself, even though more have come since then, but at that time, I had no other ones on the list. So I decided this is when I'm going to start rereading books that I love, because I've always wanted to, but I was like, I always wanted to read new books too. So I was always torn. So now my process is I have one book that I'm rereading that I really love. And it's cool because with that, C.S. Lewis always says that, or he said one time that something along the lines of, you enjoy a book a lot more on the second time you read it than the first time, because on the first time you're so anxious to finish it, you're excited to see what happens, you just want to finish it in the sense of like you want to know what happens in the story. But with the second book, you already know how it ends, so you're just really soaking it in and enjoying it. So it's been really fun doing that. I've already read 3 books of the rereading books, and it's just very like at your own pace, and it's cool because you can choose. I love all the, you know, Christmas, fall, all that. So I've been kind of picking books for the season. But anyways, so the book I'm rereading right now is A Gentleman in Moscow. I absolutely loved this book. Just started rereading it actually yesterday. This one it's right after the Bolshevik Revolution happens. And there's a man that the Bolsheviks convict who's from like the aristocrat society. So they obviously hated the aristocrats, the Bolsheviks did. And my parents actually lived through the Soviet Union, and they experienced a lot of the horrors of it. So that's one reason that it was really interesting to me. But also, man, just the way that he writes this book. And I've read his other books. This one is by far my favorite, personally. I love all things cozy. I love all things sophisticated. I love like I'm such a balance of I just sometimes can just go out in nature and I don't need anything else, but I also really love the finer things of life, like pairing drinks with meals and really good quality food and drinks and all that. So there's a lot of that in here, but it's also like it's a slow build up, but by the end or towards the end, it goes very fast and there's a lot happening, but he really sets up the story very well. I just started rereading it. It's in Moscow. To me, it's a winter book. So I figured December's a good time. And also, not to give away too much too early, but my next book definitely has similar vibes in some aspects. So this book definitely influenced me a lot. It's a completely different story in a way, but there's also a lot of similarities. So yeah, that's what I'm rereading. And then last of all, what the new book that I'm reading is called New York, the Novel by Edward Rutherford. This one is a historical fiction of the entire history of New York. So from when they first discovered it to 9/11, I believe it goes until, and I'm a little more than halfway through. It's definitely a slower read because it's a lot of history, but when I first visited New York like 8 years ago, I visited during Christmas time and I just fell in love with the city. To me, it had an energy that no other city I've ever been to has had. So, anyways, I really loved it and had a special place in my heart for New York since. So this one was on my list when I saw it at a bookstore. And so yeah, reading this right now, currently in the late 1800s. So anyways, that is my story and my stories. I hope you enjoy the channel. If there's anything specific you want me to go over or talk about, feel free to leave a comment. But yeah, happy reading.